Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the weekly BINALOT Talks. So, this talk will be the first uh, talk on the series that involves the National Museum, who will be giving a month-long talk uh, for the BINALOT Talks. Our first speaker for this series is going to be Mr. Bobby C. Orillaneda. Bobby is the officer in charge and senior museum researcher at the Maritime and Underwater Cultural Heritage Division of the National Museum of the Philippines. He finished his master's degree in archaeology at the University of the Philippines Archaeological Studies program, and he is currently finishing his doctorate degree at the Center for Maritime Archaeology, University of Oxford. He is the current president of the Kapisanan ng mga Archaeologists sa Pilipinas Incorporation, or the Guild of Archaeologists in the Philippines. And he is also a member of ECOMOS Philippines and the International Committee on Underwater Cultural Heritage Management. His interests include Asian ceramics, Southeast Asian pre-colonial and colonial maritime trade, World War II shipwrecks, and the preservation and management of the Philippine underwater cultural heritage. So let us all please welcome Mr. Bobby Orillaneda.
Okay, so today I will talk about 300 years of maritime trade in the Philippines, covering the periods 16th to 18th century CE. And we'll be talking about the shipwreck evidence, as highlighted by 5 shipwrecks: the Canduli Shoal, the San Isidro, the San Diego, the San Jose, the Griffin, and the Royal Captain, and its subsequent contribution to the Philippine maritime history. So to begin with, let me give you a brief history on the development of underwater and maritime archaeology research in the Philippines. So the first, shall we say, office that started this was the Underwater Archaeology Unit, or UAU, that was created in 1979. This was after a series of training programs sponsored by the SPAFA in Thailand in 1978 and in 1979. And at that time, there were no archaeologists, so people who are, who can do scuba diving were tapped to train a program. And after the program, they created the Underwater Archaeology Unit, which was part of the Anthropology Division at that time. So it all changed in 1988 when Archaeology Division was created. So the UAU was renamed the Underwater Archaeology Section. So it's a little bit bigger, and under the capable hands of then Dr. Florante Henson, an archaeologist, and also Dr. Eusebio Dizon, I think, who you know. So from 1988 until 2016, it was UAS. And then in 2016, after the National Museum was reorganized, the Maritime and Underwater Cultural Heritage Division was created along with other research and administrative divisions. So at this time, there are like 8 of us, me as an OIC, and we have Senior Museum Researcher Nero Ostero and Museum Researcher Rachel Loretta, along with 4 museum technicians and 1 administrative officer. It's not enough, and we are actually opening jobs to those who are interested. There are openings as Curator 2, Curator 1, as well as 3 Museum Researcher 2. So this is open to graduate students, graduates of ASP. So we would like to populate our division with people from ASP. So if you're interested, please contact me or just see the National Museum website for the career opportunities. So since 1979, we have carried out a lot of explorations, surveys, and excavations. And the map that you see now are the major excavations that we did. So we have some prehistoric, like what Dr. Gay Laxina and I participated at the Marigonton Cave about 10 years ago, where we excavated an underwater cave that was dated to the Holocene period. And we also have shipwrecks from the 13th century, which we can find here: the Investigator Shore, the Breaker Reef, and the San Antonio. And we have 15, currently 3 or 4 15th century shipwrecks. And there are also 16th century shipwrecks, 17th, 18th, 19th, until World War II. So moving on, let me give you a little bit of historical background about the colonial period of the Philippines. So in 1521, the Spanish naval expeditionary fleet led by Magellan arrived in the Philippines and was actually celebrated last year for its 500-year anniversary, most popularly known as the quincentennial commemorations in the Philippines. So this Spanish mission was a consequence of European territorial, economic, and religious ambitions in Southeast Asia, and primarily driven by the desire to acquire Southeast Asian spices and other natural and manufactured produce that were in growing demand in Europe, and it also had three objectives. First, to secure a share in the lucrative spice trade. Second, to establish direct contacts with China and Japan. And third, to Christianize the inhabitants of the archipelago. So one of the most significant events in maritime world history was the birth of the Manila-Acapulco galleon trade. This was a consequence of the Spanish occupation of the Philippines, and was born out of the desire to transport people and merchandise between trade entrepôts in Asia, in Manila here, the eastern side, as well as in the Americas, which is here in Acapulco, Mexico, and traversing the more than 15,000-kilometer Pacific Ocean. It started in 1565 after the vessel San Pedro discovered the eastward route, or what they call Torno Viaje, from Manila to South America. So the Manila-Acapulco galleon trade became the dominant form of maritime trade in the Philippines for 250 years, which is from 1565 to 1815, linking Southeast Asia to America and ultimately Europe, and basically represents the earliest form of economic globalization. So now let me give you examples of shipwrecks that represent the maritime trade history from the 16th to 18th centuries. First is the Kanduli Shoal shipwreck, which is also known as the Royal Captain Junk shipwreck. This shipwreck was accidentally discovered during the search for an English East Indiaman Royal Captain in 1985, for which the shoal has been named. Subsequent undersea investigations by the National Museum and worldwide first revealed the shipwreck material remains dated to the 16th and 17th centuries, but apparently not related to the Royal Captain. So the Royal Captain Shoal is here. It's the Philippines in the western side of Palawan. Then this is the Royal Captain that we are discussing now, the 16th century one. The site lies in a channel 45 meters deep on the top of the Royal Captain Shoal, or the Kanduli Shoal, which is technically a coral atoll and not a shoal. It has been named a shoal. The shallowness of the site, as you can see here, about 45 meters, meant a very dynamic water environment, and thus no shipwreck remains were found, and the artifacts were found widely scattered inside the corals here. So you can only imagine that there were very difficult and challenging work, because some of it are inside the corals, and unfortunately they had to destroy some corals to recover the materials. The archaeological inventory included Chinese blue and white and monochrome porcelains, stoneware jars, earthenwares, glass beads, bronze gongs, iron ingots, and some bone fragments that were found inside the stoneware jar. So this is sort of the certification of the seabed and also mapping of the site. So majority of the ceramic wares were identified as Zhangzhou wares, produced by the kilns in Zhangzhou region of the Fujian province in China. The Zhangzhou ceramics are described as low quality, as you can see here. The glaze are not very good, and also the shapes are not very well defined. It's more like a haphazard sort of manufacture. So they are low quality as against the more famous blue and white ceramics produced in Jingdezhen, which is considered as a porcelain capital of the world, and in China. So these types of wares were said to be for Southeast Asian markets, and you can see it in a lot of archaeological sites here in the Philippines, as well as the rest of Southeast Asia, and considered not of very good quality. So the nature of the recovered material evidence indicated that the Kanduli Shoal junk to be an Asian vessel despite the very meager wooden remains. And this is what you can see here are some smaller examples of blue and white from Jingdezhen, which is quite different from the previous ones, the Zhangjiao, and these are the Jingdezhen. It's of high quality. So the boat apparently grounded, possibly due to inclement weather, as the shoal is located in the middle of the vast stretch of sea, and the shoal may not have been recorded in navigation maps during that period. Its small size meant it traveled shorter distances, possibly island hopping from Borneo to Manila, and carrying trade goods in exchange for other in-demand merchandise back at its home port. The investigators believe the vessel was engaged in Southeast Asian intra-regional trade and on its way to China from China to Borneo when it struck the atoll during the northeast monsoon. So these are also some of the examples we have on the upper center and the left are Celadon wares, also from Fujian province. And these are small brown glazed jarlets, again from Fujian. And this one, I'm not sure where it is, where its manufacture is. And these are Tradescant jars and bronze gongs. So next we go to the San Isidro shipwreck. So this shipwreck was inadvertently discovered in 1994, about 9 kilometers from the nearest shoreline of Barangay San Isidro during the course of an underwater exploration conducted by the National Museum of the Philippines and the Far Eastern Foundation for Nautical Archaeology. So this was during the search for this Dutch ship called Newson that was sunk during the battle between Spain and Holland in 1619. So this is the second series of battles after the San Diego in 1600, and then there's another one, and they call the Battle Playa Honda. So the team was searching for this Dutch shipwreck, which until now has not been found. Can you imagine? It started in the 1990s, and until now we're still searching for it. So what you see are the snapshots of the site itself, in situ photos of the artifacts as well as the excavation itself. So what was found are mostly ceramic dishes from Jiangjiao region also, saucers, bowls, jars, lids, and a box from China, Thailand, and Vietnam. So the non-ceramic items that were recovered include iron bars, woks or cooking cauldrons, a small knife, and ecofacts such as betel nuts, coconut, and a piece of root crop, locally termed almasiga, that is used for lighting fire. So these are the Jiangjiao wares, different types of Jiangjiao wares. You can see it's mostly a homogeneous type of sort of artistry, and this is very typical of the Jiangjiao ware. So most of the Jiangjiao wares are like this. And what you can see on the lower left side of your screen is actually a blue and white big bowl from northern Vietnam, from the Chu Dao kilns in northern Vietnam, but it's the only one. So systematic excavations revealed a small vessel, roughly 15 meters long and 6 meters wide, and buried under about 50 centimeters of sediment, including 5 centimeters of Mount Pinatubo ash. But I think now it's getting thicker. So the last time we were there, we were able to penetrate up to 4 to 5 meters of Mount Pinatubo ash. So you can only imagine now the deposition of the shipwrecks. It's getting harder and harder to access now. So preliminary analysis of the vessel structure suggested that the vessel may be a local sailing boat similar to Garay, Parao, and Barangay boat with no outriggers and are plank built. The vessel may have been used to transport cargo from bigger trading vessels, such as Chinese junks that cannot dock on shore, and directly to the land-based traders. I know Dr. Laksina has done some studies on this, so maybe she has an updated interpretation of the boat of the San Isidro. Next, we go to the San Diego shipwreck. It's a 3-masted vessel built in Cebu in 1590 and measured about 35 to 40 meters long, 12 meters wide and 8 meters high. It had at least 4 decks and could hold about 700 tons of cargo. Originally a merchant vessel, it was quickly converted into a warship that sank off the waters of Nasugbu in Batangas during the battle with the Dutch vessel Mauritius in 14 December 1600. So the exploration and excavation of this shipwreck from 1991 and 1993 was considered then a seminal undertaking between the National Museum and Worldwide First, headed by Frank Rodio. More than 34,000 archaeological objects, including valuable archaeological data that could elucidate maritime culture in the Philippines during the 16th and 17th centuries, were recovered. It was also the first archaeological evidence supporting Spanish shipbuilding tradition in Asia. So because it was quite deep, about high 50s, low 60 meters, so the National Museum could not participate in its excavation and therefore used a submersible to supervise the excavation along with Frank Rodio. So they hired professional technical divers, which were initially trained to do archaeological excavation. So a substantial cargo of the San Diego, including cracked ceramics, which you can see on your screen, the different types. It is a type of Chinese export porcelain produced mainly in the late Ming Dynasty, starting in the Wanli reign in 1573 to 1620. It was among the first Chinese export wares to arrive in Europe in mass quantities. The wares are characterized by the arrangement of each ornament into panels, which you can see here, the panels, different panels here. And these usually radiate into the bracketed or foliated rim, which you can see definitely here. It's sort of a rolled rim or foliated or bracketed rim. So the ceramics are produced, these types of ceramics are produced by the Jiangxi province in Jingdezhen, so known for its high quality ceramics. In addition, these are mostly destined for European markets. Again, examples of Wanli dishes, which shows the different panels and also different types of decorations. And we also have substantial quantities of Chinese jars, such as what you can see in the upper left side of your screen, which are termed the dragon jars, which have applique dragon decorations, and also what we call looted jars, which this is represented by these types here, which are actually two types of jars that are joined together. And also there's these smaller stoneware jars, and some of them bore the marks of the owners of the jars. And what you can see here are examples of the jars, large sturdy jars from Thailand in Mae Nam Noi or Singburi province, as well as the big, also very sturdy Martaban jars from Myanmar. And additionally, these are examples of Spanish olive jars that are, they call it a terracotta, classified as terracotta. You can also see the different assemblages, ceramic assemblages, from blue and white to Tradescant jars with green glazes, as well as earthenwares, even ovens and earthenware with porcelain inlays. These are said to be manufactured here in the Philippines, but we haven't been able to uncover any similar examples in our archaeological sites at this point. You can also see silver metalware, pieces of 8 silver coins, glasswares, also religious items and navigational instruments, the astrolabe in the center and the concentric ring on your right. So next we go to the San Jose shipwreck. The San Jose was the biggest Spanish galleon during its time, having a length of 60 meters. She reportedly sunk during a storm off the shores of the west side of Lubang Island, Mindoro. So here, this is Lubang Island, and this is the site where it sunk, and this was actually taken in 2019 when we were there, the Luke Bay. So It's in Mindoro Oriental, and it sank on July 3, 1694, as the vessel was on its way to Acapulco. So it was reported that the ship's three masts and rudder supposedly broke as the ship hit the reef, causing severe damage to its structure. All 400 people on board allegedly perished, along with 12,000 pieces of cargo. It was estimated that the wreckage was strewn over a large area, possibly 1 square kilometer, but the main area may be approximately contained in the 300 square meter area. So the National Museum of the Philippines carried out a search for the San Jose in collaboration with WWF in a 127 square kilometer area covering the waters between Cabral Island and northwest of Lubang Island. So a magnetometer survey was carried out around Tagbacog, which I showed previously. So this is Tagbacog in Loo. And detected two anomalies of non-natural origins. So the beach area in Lubang Island, Mindoro, yielded almost 1,000 broken pieces of high-quality Chinese blue and white porcelains, which you can see here. Offshore and a maximum of 10 meters, a number of shipwreck-related archaeological objects were discovered. That includes broken Chinese blue and white porcelains, stoneware and earthenware fragments, encrusted cannonballs, lead balls that are presumed to be musket ammunitions, as well as other metal artifacts. And as you can see here, the excavation again on top of a coral. It's not so deep. And the exposition of the San Jose shipwreck remains. So in October to November of 2019, the National Museum team went back there to test new survey equipment and collected several ceramic broken pieces, including 4 intact pieces of blue and white miniature battles that you can see on the right side of your screen. So next we go to the Griffin shipwreck. So it's a 499-ton English East India Company ship and laden with tea and porcelain as the main cargoes, together with 26 cannons and 99 crew. It sank in January 20, 1761, in the shallow waters of northwest of Basilan. So it's here in Basilan, and it's located northwest of Basilan Island. So according to historical sources, the vessel left England carrying packs of clothing and other private trade merchandise on its way to Canton in China, where it was loaded with cargo composed mostly of tea. On the way back to Europe, Griffin was joined by 5 other ships. On board Griffin was Alexander Dalrymple, who was appointed to negotiate an agreement with the Sultan of Jolo. The agreement would allow the East India Company to freely trade and establish a trading port in Cebu. So the fleet diverted from the traditional route and sailed via the east of Palawan and Celebes Sea. However, upon arriving on the shallow area near Basilan, Griffin struck a rock and rapidly sank. All the sailors were saved by other ships, but the entire cargo was lost. They then continued with the plan to Jolo and founded the free port. So in 1986, archaeological excavations were conducted by the National Museum, and again, the worldwide first, headed by Frank Odio. And the activities lasted 14 months and exposed the shipwreck at a depth of 15 meters. So this is a photo mosaic of the hull remains of the Griffin. The hull section, measuring 29 meters long, was discovered under 6 meters of sand. So you can only imagine the difficulty also of exposing the wreck when you have to excavate 6 meters of sand to expose the shipwreck and its cargo. Thousands of artifacts were retrieved from the shipwreck that mostly consist of tea chests and porcelain wares, that what you can find here. So it's still in its original loading position. So these are blue and white plates, and also these are blue and white plates. So during this century, tea was highly regarded in England, a luxury and expensive. Proof for the demand of tea may also be gleaned by a number of porcelain tea sets retrieved from their cargo, which you can find it here. Among the other artifacts in the wreck were iron ballast, wooden ship riggings, plating materials, cannons, nails, tin, lead slugs, amorphous statues, wine bottles, ropes, and pottery sherds. So you see the different types of ceramics that were recovered from the site. And after recovery, these are mostly the type of dining ware and tea sets that were recovered from the Griffin, along with some vases and some uh, figurines from the Dewa kilns in China. Again, a snapshot to show the different ceramic assemblies that were taken from the Griffin. So it's a little bit diverse. The forms are quite diverse. So next we go to the Royal Captain ship. So in 1985, again, Worldwide First collaborated with the National Museum to find the remains of this East India Company Royal Captain, which I mentioned earlier. So the vessel was chartered to transport goods from Canton, China, to the free port in Balambangan Island, then to England. The English trading ship measured 43.6 meters from bow to rudder and weighed 780 tons and carried mainly silk, tea, spices, and porcelains. In December 1773, the vessel was on its way to Balambangan when it struck an uncharted reef near Palawan Island, so it's now named after this vessel. So more than 200 years later, electronic surveys revealed a 4-pounder cannon at less than 14 meters deep and an 18th century great bow anchor at a depth of 55 meters. This confirmed the log of the Royal Captain. However, no further evidences were found after several exploratory dives to over 100 meters. It was only in 1999 when the team was able to retrieve some of the Royal Captain's cargo. Part of the cargo lies at a depth of 300 meters, which can be found here. So it's at 300 meters, it's impossible for scuba divers to excavate the wreck. So for these archaeological excavations, submersibles were used, which you can find here on the upper left side of your screen, called the deep rovers, that is able to withstand deep sea pressure. So allowing it to dive up to 1,000 meters while carrying one passenger and one pilot. So they are equipped with multifunctional robotic arms, which you can find here, capable of picking up objects carefully. So they've tried to follow the archaeological method of using grids and recording everything in terms of its position. So the bell was also found later at a depth of 460 meters, which they were able to recover. So approximately 1,847 artifacts, which comprises about 5% of the cargo, was retrieved, including the ship's bell, as well as blue and white porcelains, such as vases, cups, and figurines. So the Chinese blue and whites belong to the Qianlong dynasty, about 1736 to 1795 CE, and mostly destined also for European markets. So what you can see here are also the different ceramic types that was recovered from the Royal Captain. And the personalities here were the retired Larry Alba, which was a researcher of the National Museum, and also Sonny Agnasin, museum technician. So to summarize, from the 16th to the 18th centuries, the Philippines has been an essential part of an international maritime network that linked Asia, the Americas, and ultimately the world through the Manila Galleon trade. The Kanduli Show was engaged in Southeast Asian intra-regional trade, where the San Isidro vessel may have been one of the local vessels that cater to the local population based on its small size and cargo. The San Diego, on the other hand, represents a complex story of initial being an inter-island merchant vessel that was converted into a warship. Its archaeological assemblage was a mixture of merchant cargo as well as items of luxury, as the vessel was boarded by the some of Spanish nobility in Manila. So the San Jose, on the other hand, represents the outbound Manila galleon with its cargo. The Griffin and the Royal Captain highlights the British interest in the maritime and political affairs of the Philippines. That's all. Thank you.
All right. All right. Thanks so much, Bobby. I think there's a lot of questions here. In fact, there's a lot of questions that were already sent to me. But For everyone who want to ask any questions, you can press the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen, and then we will call you and invite you to unmute and also turn on your camera. So we'll get to the questions from the chat in a few minutes because I think Dr. Juan Rofes has a question.
Hello, Juan.
Juan,
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes.
You can also turn on your video if you want.
Let's see. Okay. 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 Sorry that I don't look straight, but my Zoom is in the other screen. Hi, Bobby.
Hi.
Thanks for this very interesting synoptic talk about galleon trade. It's a while that I should have actually already written you, because I am interested in galleon trade also. Actually, I'm trying to put forward, I don't know if you heard, but a project with Mexican colleagues from Instituto Nacional de Antropología y Historia in Mexico. So we are trying to develop the zoo archaeology of the galleon trade. So to try to understand what species were brought through galleon trade in the 2 centuries and a half that the galleon trade was on, and what species from Southeast Asia or Asia via Manila were brought back. So where we start, the basis of the project is I started mentoring one master thesis here that is currently studying sewer material from colonial sites, 18th, 19th century, to see if we can find out. And then my colleague there will try to, or is already, I think, have a person in mind to do the same there. So we can try to do the 2 ways.
Yeah, very interesting.
As an expert or a person that is very interested in galleon trade, I would like to ask you, and of course talk more later about this, I will contact you, but what's your take on animal remains from galleon trade shipwrecks and the other shipwrecks you mentioned? What can you tell me, what you can tell us about if they have been recovered, where are they stored, and if they are available for study?
Yes, thanks very much for that very interesting question. Actually, most of these shipwrecks were excavated in the 80s, and archaeology was in its infancy then in terms of underwater archaeology, and the supervisors for this were not really classically trained archaeologists. So I'm sure there were a lot of animal remains, but I think a substantial number of them has not been recovered, or if it was recovered, it was not conserved properly. Although we have some animal remains here and also fish remains in the National Museum, it's not much. We have to go back to the records to see if they had recovered a lot of these things, because right now our storage is still in its organizing stage, and we have been transferring from warehouse, and there may have been a lot of organic remains, including animal and fish remains that we have not seen yet. So we will try to find it. But as of now, we have some animal and fish remains in San Diego. Okay. But as for the other materials, we still have to look for it. But as soon as we find it, we will update you.
Okay. Thank you. I will write to you soon to have a deeper chat.
Sure. And I will also try to find non-ceramic items, because it's always the ceramics that's a little bit biased when it comes to shipwrecks, and you have to remember 1980s is a different type of methodology then, so especially for shipwrecks. So yeah, we'll try to find it.
Okay, thank you.
On that note, maybe I can also add, aside from archaeological materials, do you also find, I don't know, human remains as well? Or
there are human remains also, again from the San Diego, but not much on other shipwrecks.
All right. But were they also retrieved, or just left?
There are some that are stored here at our office.
All right. Okay. So I think that there might be some possible interest in more collaborations that can be done with the National Museum.
Sure. We would really like that. That's what we aim for.
All right. There's another question here for you, Bobby. Ano yung approaches ng National Museum to survey for wrecks? Kasi ang haba ng coastline natin. How do you prioritize? That's an interesting question.
You have to remember na maliit lang yung division namin. So right now we're 8 people and we have only 2 of us are trained in archaeology and maritime history. So unfortunately ngayon reactive pa siya. So we only investigate when there are reports. Although we also try to find shipwrecks based on historical documents. So sa ngayon, mostly reactive. So halimbawa, if we have reports about in this area and that area, then we investigate. But we haven't been doing that, of course, because of the pandemic. So we will try to catch up this year and the years to come.
Okay.
So wala talagang systematic na
targeted
sort of methodology.
Mm-hmm. And well, marami pa akong tanong based on that. Pero may isang tanong rin dito. Meron ba kayong information regarding the Santo Cristo de Burgos na galleon? Do you have information about the Santo Cristo de Burgos galleon shipwreck?
If this Santo Cristo de Burgos in Ticao, kung ito nga yung sa Ticao, yes, we've done surveys there in the 1980s, so this was before my time.
Mm-hmm.
And nagkaroon ng konting recovery, meron mga ceramics. But the thing is parang ang kanilang interpretation is medyo sabog na sabog yung site. So konti na lang yung naiwan. Kasi it's in shallow water.
Okay. So but do you have plans to go back to some of these shipwrecks that were recorded or were excavated during the 1980s?
Yes, actually, nagpaplano na kami ni Dr. Laxina na when she was here at the National Museum. So, depende sa priority ng office din. Pero yes, there are plans of going back and actually kasi parang kulang ang recording, especially doon sa shipwreck remains. Yeah. So, kung pwedeng balikan and i-record ulit para magkaroon mas accurate na interpretation.
But in line with that, does the MACHD also offer training to the employees regarding the recording and the diving?
Yeah, yes, we do. Parang ano sa amin standard operating procedure na train kami for people who are interested in doing maritime archaeology.
All right. I asked that because I'm getting some questions about it. And I think there's a lot of people who are interested with your invitation to also apply in the
yes, please. If you're interested, please. Maritime, our division is not only concerned with shipwrecks, but also anything maritime related. So prehistoric submerged landscapes, fortifications, structures related to the Manila galleon trade, and even piers, shipyards, and all of that. Basta related sa maritime.
Okay, so it's really
we have a bigger mandate now. So hindi lang shipwreck.
I have a question regarding that, so maybe I can tack this on with this question from one of the viewers. Is there a regional policy regarding Southeast Asian shipwrecks? And maybe I can also add on to that. How do you also collaborate with other Southeast Asian organizations or museums regarding shipwrecks?
There's a close relationship between Southeast Asians. And it was cemented it was started in the 1970s, but it was really cemented in 2009, 10, 11 when UNESCO held a foundation course for 3 years. It's basically geared towards training Southeast Asian maritime archaeologists. So most of us here from the National Museum, especially Dr. Laxina, we were participants first and then trainers second. So in terms of network, sa Southeast Asian maritime archaeologists, medyo close. So we're quite updated with each other kung ano man yung mga nagiging mga bagong discoveries and also research on the subject. So it's there. we have very good maritime connections.
Interesting, this Basilan survey that you did. This is the Griffin shipwreck.
Yeah, Griffin.
But aside from this, do you also, or did you also take help out with the Malaysian and the Indonesian and Malaysian counterparts with regards to shipwrecks that might also be associated to island Southeast Asia?
Yes, we were able to participate also. I was part of a training group, and we also did some trainings in Indonesia on a 14th century shipwreck. And also some of our Indonesian colleagues, National Museum colleagues here have participated in training in Vietnam. So we're trying really to do this regional collaborative thing, pero of course it's all dependent on the budget and the last number of years wala masyadong projects.
And I think there's a lot of interest regarding this as well. But there's another question here. Are there any archaeological survey conducted in the Laguna de Bai in order to investigate evidences of inland trade or anywhere else that also involves inland trade?
I think there were some investigations done by Dr. Dizon on the Laguna de Bai. Pero I'm not really sure about to what extent they did this. So there are some. And also we went to Taal to supposedly investigate this sunken church like maybe 15 years ago. So nothing came out of it, but there's the interest in doing that, especially na malapit lang dito sa Manila.
So this is also part of the Majlis mandate.
Yes, yes.
They can also look into inland trading as long as
That's
it's
why
associated maritime.
Yes, that's why we need people. So, as of now, tatlo lang kami dito. So, and imagine covering the whole of the Philippines.
Yes, actually with that, in terms of the regional, because I'm sure that the National Museum also, we all know that the National Museum also has regional divisions. Are there trainings that you can also give, or do they also conduct their own research in the area, or do they hand over their reports to you with regards to information coming from the locals?
I think now they're encouraging people from the area, regional and site museums to conduct their own research. And there has been a healthy interaction between us and offices outside Manila. So nag-ano naman sila, nagre-report sila if there are things related to our work. And we've been very, very thankful for them for that.
Yeah, it's a nice collaboration. So not just with with Southeast Asia, but also within the Philippines.
Yes, yes.
And there's a lot of interesting things that are going on. And I wanted to ask, maybe this is also related. You showed a lot of these ceramics, but there's also a different types of ceramics that are coming in. How is the preservation when it comes to the earthenwares
it's more of the same. Even like earthenware is not really as sturdy as porcelain and stoneware, but we find earthenware also in very good condition. Although madali lang talaga sila mabasag. They're easily broken, so they're mostly fragments when we find them.
Okay.
But in terms of the conservation, once it's recovered, okay naman.
All right.
So it's still there, mostly in the same condition that we find them.
And the seawater doesn't affect them, or what are the preservation?
Not so much. We do first aid in the site. We do first aid conservation in the site, and also some of them also here in Manila. Okay. So far mukhang okay naman yung conditions ng mga earthenware.
That's interesting. There's a question here again. What do you think should the National Museum do to progress maritime archaeology in the Philippines?
Okay, so first to hire more people. In case you don't know, we are actually promoting our division through the Maritime Mondays that is covered by the National Museum website page. So since the pandemic in August of 2019, so we have a weekly sort of highlighting our shipwrecks and also our collections. So if you can access the National Museum page, makikita mo doon almost every week, except for this year, every other week na. So we actually had one produced 2 days ago, because it's Maritime Monday. So, and also, we of course participate in a lot of webinars and also do presentations in a lot of venues. It's hindi pa rin siya mainstream in a way. It's just because kulang talaga kami din sa tao. So hopefully pag marami na kami dito, we can do more projects which will raise awareness in terms of underwater cultural heritage and also of maritime archaeology.
I guess maybe also the next question will be how can the archaeological studies program help or assist or contribute?
We are actually in dire need of cooperation with the ASP, and we've been pushing for it for some time now. So hopefully, na may bagong division, and hopefully for the students of the ASP to recognize also that archaeology is also done at the National Museum, and we're always open for collaborations, and now we're open for employment. So sana maging interested sila.
Yeah.
Not only for MACHD, but also for archaeology division itself, for land archaeology. They're also hiring.
And there are also collaborations between the archaeology division and the MACHD division.
Yes, yes.
It's a very holistic.
No, it's not only about research, but also about exhibitions.
Okay.
So
Maybe that's
you know, multidisciplinary in a way, and of course MACHD and archaeology is the same. It's just basically we're submerged and they're on land. Pero in terms of research, hindi pa masyado kasi nga kulang din kami sa tao, but it's not, you know, hindi siya hindrance to do these things, and we have been doing that.
Yeah, and ang dami yung there's been a lot of publications that comes out recently every year. I think you also gave a report on SPAFA regarding the maritime and the land archaeology information here.
Well, recently wala na masyado, pero
well,
we're trying to pick it up.
Yeah, and still there's interestingly enough, there's even if there's no field work, we're still doing a lot of studies and going back through all the materials that are in storage in the National Museum. So that's always a good way to research. And there, Dr. Grace Barreto mentioned here that it's good that we can also, now that Dr. Laxina is here in ASP, so hopefully there'll be more collaborations as well and happy projects.
Gusto ko rin sabihin na last year we opened the 300 years of maritime trade, which this presentation is part of. So it's open now at the National Museum of Anthropology building. So please, if you come by way in Manila, visit the 300 years of maritime trade exhibition. It's in the second floor, National Museum of Anthropology building.
And this is for free, right?
Yes, free.
There's no payment for National.
No payment.
All right, so everyone, please visit. I think it should be mandatory that you visit the National Museum at this.
Sana.
Yeah, well, hopefully. There's a question here. Has there been shipwrecks that were looted before the National Museum can study them?
Yes, unfortunately, halos lahat looted siya bago siya na-report. So a lot of archaeological data and information has been lost because it has been looted. So kadalasan, nilulut muna ng fisherman, binibenta sa antique dealers, tsaka pa namin nalalaman na, may bagong pumasok na mga ceramics, tsaka nag-i-investigate. So, and then this also reflects na in terms of the local government units not really knowing what to do if there are things like this. So kaya isa sa mga parang standard operating procedures namin is to do courtesy calls to all the barangays and the municipalities that we go to and explain to them about maritime archaeology, and also there's someone from another division to explain about the law. So yes, unfortunately, nalulut muna. Maliban lang dun sa well-researched like San Diego, the Griffin, itong mga Manila galleons, kasi there's an active interest in looking for them. But for like pre-colonial shipwrecks na wala tayong record, it's mostly based on fishermen reports who of course loot the site first.
I guess it's also, so mostly you're saying that a lot of the fishermen as well and the locals there already know about the shipwrecks because they're the ones who are there.
Yes, yes, and of course, I mean, how can we, blame them for something like that? Na nabibenta siya eh. So for the local fishermen, this is a source of livelihood, and it's what happened with a lot of the shipwrecks because they're not fishing anymore. They're getting ceramics and they sell it to antique dealers. Pero unfair din sa kanila kasi binibili lang sa kanila for a few hundreds of pesos, whereas the actual value of it is like 100 times more. So
Definitely,
parang
yeah.
ganun, but
It's a complex issue, I would suppose.
very, very complex issue. Yeah.
There's a follow-up question here. I guess it's also associated to what you mentioned. So how do you ensure data privacy to avoid treasure hunting? But maybe there's the fishermen will also already know that the areas where the areas are, but if you find something that hasn't been treasure hunted yet, how do you ensure its safety? Or how do you ensure the privacy of the information? Or are there measurements for to do this?
Well, sa reports namin, we don't really pinpoint the exact coordinates. And also we try to, if there are shipwreck discoveries na hindi pa natatrabaho, we try to tap the local government units to watch over the site. Sometimes it's effective, other times it's not. But the thing that we can do now is really if we discover something, then we have to work on it. Kasi it's highly threatened in terms of really looting. So kung may makikita, hindi na patatagalin and mag-excavate na agad. Except really for those areas na highly aware yung mga tao na bawal siya and hindi pa ganun kadami.
Are there some examples of that, of those places?
Like sa Subic, medyo aware ang management ng Subic on how to protect their sites, not only for World War and also other yung older shipwrecks. Yung mga tourist areas mostly, so alam na nila na kailangan i-protect ng diving community kasi yun din yung source ng kanilang livelihood. Pero for other shipwrecks na yung malayo siguro, yung malayo from land, medyo mo-protect mo kasi alam mo wala maghahanap, pero if it's near land, medyo mahirap.
All right. I guess it's also one of the questions. So do you work with the Coast Guard sa Bantay Dagat?
Yeah, yes we do. When we do projects, we always work with a special operations group of the Coast Guard, and also we work with the Navy, and we do courtesy calls with the Bantay Dagat. Along with the government officials. So they are always at the very least informed of our project. But it's a Coast Guard mostly that we work with.
When you work, these are mostly, of course, these are very deep underwater, but what's the farthest that you found shipwrecks maybe in the Pacific side in terms of the galleon trade?
Pacific side.
Or were there?
Yes, there are some, especially dito sa may Sorsogon area, yung area na papalabas sila. But it's quite deep. There's a report that there's one that's in 90 meters of water, but it's very inaccessible because of the current.
Oh, wow.
So yung area niyan, very, very dynamic yung tubig. Okay. So most of our sites here are at least 30 meters deep, 30 to 50 meters.
That's deep. Already deep.
You know, parang average. Okay. And it's good because it's not really that accessible to, the common scuba divers kasi medyo malalim siya. So in a way, parang merong limitations on access.
That's
but
true.
For the professionals, these are nothing. So
yes.
Kaya pa rin nila.
Yes, but I'm also hoping that with more interest, more people who are going to work with you, and also organizational partnerships, and more awareness, there might be technological advances that could allow you to go deeper and see more and understand more when it comes to the galleon trade. So I'm sure there's a lot of other, and I'm hoping there's older deposits there as well.
Yeah, exactly. So like for us this year, have already 2 reports of different shipwrecks from different areas. So we're trying to investigate that as long as, well, we are allowed, but still our budget's still not here. So once the budget comes in, then we have to go to these places. And also we have to continue work on the Butuan boats, which was last excavated in 2013, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So we're trying to collaborate with Dr. Laksina because she's an expert on that. So
Yes. She also gave a talk 2 weeks ago, so maybe we can collaborate, or
yeah,
maybe that can also be a tag teaching. That's something that we can think about, or we can
yes,
invite you again to.
very, very receptive to that. So anything collaborative, as long as in the interest of the public and it's academic, then we're okay with that.
Are there other priority sites or topics for this year that you're going to do?
It's reactive now because we're actually investigating these 2 shipwreck sites and also the Butuan boat. So basically, in terms of priority, for the Butuan boats is the most priority for us.
All right.
So, but still, we're taking it slow. Kasi
Okay.
parang we transition to something. So
Maybe
we're in a bit of a transition.
Maybe this is also maybe we can ask if some students are interested in helping out with the excavation. Will that be a possibility?
Yes, very much.
All right.
We would like that. Kung may volunteer, yes, we can. We're open to that.
Okay, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who are interested in the archaeological sites, not just from the Machli, but also in the archaeology division.
Yes.
So it would be great for them to train from the National Museum, and it's always a privilege to.
No, we'd be happy to do that.
Yeah. I guess there's a last question. Any other questions? There's one here. Maybe this can be the last question. Would it be, there's somebody who's interested to apply in the underwater division. Would it be possible to apply next year because they're still finishing their program in ASP right now? Or what would you recommend?
Hindi naman needed na graduate ka na. Even if you're a graduate student, you can.
Okay.
So, kasi entry level naman to museum researchers. So, well, if you want to be curator, then you need to have at least a master's degree.
All right. And so it's fine if they are still finishing their thesis or they already have their diploma or finishing their diploma.
Yeah, even I think a diploma is okay.
Yeah. And it will make sense because usually in government positions, it takes a year or a little less for them to process. So
we're actually very fast now. So we want to fill up all the positions within the year. So like yung aming bagong technicians now is like you are accepted today and in a week or so you can report. Ganun kabilis.
Oh, wow.
Especially with the election. So I think maybe post-election tong mga researchers and curators. So June, basta they have to monitor the National Museum website, or I can post in the copy, or in my Facebook timeline. I can post it if the opening is there.
Yeah, that would be great. I also posted in the chat the link. I'll put it here again.
Yeah.
For everyone who might be interested, you can check out the opportunities in the National Museum. So just send in your application in the email. And if it's inaccessible to you right now, so we'll share it in CAPI. If you're still not a member of CAPI, then this is already a call for everyone to join the membership. So it's now open for the second call. And of course, Bobby is our president. So he's been very active with regards, alongside the other members with producing new information with CAPI. So come on and join. All right.
I hope so.
Are there any other questions from everyone here? Okay, it looks like everyone, I'm getting direct messages that are saying that they're very excited about this and they want to join, and they're asking about the methods for the way to join the National Museum. So it looks like you've successfully.
It's in the website. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in a way, we're recruiting. This is sort of a recruiter pitch for for people to work with us.
Definitely. And I think that this month-long talk is a good way to recruit new people and to
Yeah.
disseminate the information of what kinds of research that the National Museum has been doing for the past years, and the moving forward towards the new ideas. So yeah.
Yeah.
So
Thanks very much, Anna, for inviting us.
of course, thank you. Well, we'll have we were talking about it, and we're hoping that there's going to be a part 2. We'll give another invitation for the National Museum, and hopefully we'll get more people who will want to share their research from other divisions. So
Exactly.
open up not just from the archaeology division, but everyone is certainly welcome. So if there's no more questions, you can also ask questions to Bobby. I'm sure that you're still ruminating on your questions right now. But if you have any questions, maybe you can. Are you free to be emailed, Bobby?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Maybe you can put your email address on the chat, and you can email Bobby if you have any questions. Or alternatively, you can check out the National Museum website. So it's also in the chat. You can see the types of exhibit that are being produced there. So they're not just open for research. There's also an education division. So they're interested in interpreting these works from the researchers and disseminating this to the public. So it's also quite an interesting time to be an archaeologist, whether you're in research or the public archaeology. All right. For next week, continuing on with our National Museum theme, we will have Taj Vitales, sifting through the colonial debris, identifying 16th to 17th century pottery assemblages from Intramuros, Manila. So if anyone is interested, I'm sure there's a lot of new information that's coming out regarding Intramuros, and it's something that we can rethink about going beyond the Spanish period of Intramuros. So and looking beyond the buildings that are there. So we will all see you next week, same time, and I think you can check out the Zoom information as well. Feel free to or to follow the BINALOT Talks Facebook. But for now, thank you very much, and we'll all see you next week.